Long ago, in a time when the winds whispered ancient secrets and the trees held memories of forgotten days, there was a small, humble village tucked away in the heart of a vast and mysterious forest. Now, this village, though beautiful in its simplicity, it was a place of secrets. It was a place where nothing was as it seemed, and where the everyday and the supernatural were intertwined in the most unexpected ways. The villagers had learned to live with the unknown, to listen to the whispers of the forest, to respect the spirits of the earth, and to never ever stray from the old ways. There were people who lived in harmony with nature, hunting only what was needed, planting only what the earth could yield, and eating only what the land had generously given them. In other words, they had never known hunger, for the land was kind and plentiful. But listen, there was one thing about this village that always intrigued the villagers. The mysterious woman who lived at the edge of the village in a small hut that seemed as though it had grown out of the earth itself. Her name was Namaka, and though she had lived in the village for many years, no one knew where she had come from. Let me tell you about Namaka. Namaka was unlike the other women of the village. One, she was beautiful, with smooth skin that never seemed to age and eyes that shone like the stars, bright and knowing. But yet, there was something in her that seemed distant, as though she were not truly one of them. She never spoke of her past, and the villagers never asked for, they respected her privacy. She lived alone, with no husband and no children. And though she often offered food to the villagers, she never shared her home with anyone. Listen, despite her solitude, Namaka was known for her cooking. Her meals were unlike anything anyone had ever tasted. It didn't matter if she was cooking meat or vegetables, or if she was cooking grains or fruits, her dishes were perfect. The smell of her food would often waft through the village, making everyone stop what they were doing and take a deep breath, savoring the aroma. The people would gather at her door, and she would even serve them, smiling warmly as they ate the food, always more than enough to satisfy their hunger. But there were some villagers who could not explain it. It was as though she cooked with something more than just ingredients. Something was hidden in her meals, something that made them taste so extraordinary, so divine. The children especially loved her food, for it made them feel strong, full of energy, and always with a smile on their faces. But despite the pressure her food brought to everyone, there was always a whisper among the elders, a fear that grew with each passing year. Where did her food come from? Now, one evening, after a long day of work, the villagers gathered once more at Namaka's hut, drawn by the mouth-watering aroma that filled the air. Now this time, however, there was a sense of unease that lingered over them. Though none dared to speak of it aloud, they sat down at her table, as usual, their mouth watering in anticipation. The food was already on the table, bowls filled with hearty stews, plates piled with high-cooked grains and vegetables, and a feast of roasted meats that looked too perfect to be real. Now, the villagers began to eat as usual. They devoured the food, laughing, talking, and enjoying each other's company, as they always did when they gathered at Namaka's hut. But this time, something felt different. The food was not just delicious, it was magical. They felt their bodies fill with energy as though they were becoming stronger with every bite. The village men, tired from their day's work, felt rejuvenated as though their muscles were no longer weary. The women felt their spirits lifted as though a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. But there was something that no one could understand. Where did she get all this food? Now, Namaka never went to the market. She never gathered food in the village or the forest. Yet every night she had more than enough to feed everyone. The villagers thought a little bit of it at first, for who would question a woman so kind, like so generous, who had never asked for anything in return? Remember, she was not selling them food. She would give them this food for free. Now, that night, one man, a man old enough to remember the ancient stories, a man who had seen the land change over time, began to grow suspicious. His name was Mzee Karema, and though he had never been one to speak out, he had lived long enough to understand that some things were simply too perfect, too flawless to be natural. Namaka's food was too perfect. Now, that evening, as the villagers ate and laughed, Mzee Karema quietly slipped away, unseen by the others, and hid in the shadows, watching Namaka's every move, trying to understand the source of the food that had come to define her. He watched as she moved to the fire, stirring the pots with a practiced hand, and then something strange happened. Do you know what Mzee Karema saw? Mzee Karema's heart skipped a beat as he saw it. Namaka reached into the folds of her robe, pulling something out from beneath the cloth. At first, Mzee Karema thought it was a band of herbs, something she had maybe brought from the forest. But as he squinted, his breath caught in his throat. It was not herbs, it was her own hair. Namaka, with calm precision, began to pluck strands of her own pubic hair. One by one, she dropped the hairs into the simmering pot, her face slain as though this were the most natural thing in the world. She murmured strange words that sounded like a chant, a spell, or an incarnation. The air grew thick with an unnatural warmth, and the smell from the pot grew richer, more intoxicating. Mzee Karema felt his stomach churn. The food, the perfect food, had come from something that should never have been used in cooking. And the villagers who had eaten from her pots for so many years had consumed something unholy. Now, do you want to know what happened next? Let me tell you. Mzee Karema could not keep this secret. He went straight to the elders and they called for an emergency meeting. They decided that they must unconfront Namaka once and for all, so that every night they gathered at her hut watching from the shadows, like they waited in silence as she prepared her feast. Then when the time came, they stepped forward, confronting her in the very act of adding more hair to the pot. The elders demanded that she explain herself, but Namaka only smiled. She had known this day would come. With an air of calmness, she revealed the truth. Her food had not come from the earth, nor from the forests, nor from the markets. It had come from herself, her body, her very essence, and it was this sacrifice that made her food so perfect. But the price was steep. The villagers had eaten of her flesh unknowingly for years. They had consumed part of her spirit, and now they were bound to her forever. They could never be free of her. Namaka disappeared that night, leaving only the scent of her cooking in the air. The villagers searched for her, but she was gone. vanished into the wind as though she had never existed. And from that day on, the villagers never ate with such abandon. They learned to be cautious of the food they consumed, and the elders told the story of Namaka to their children, warning them of the dangers of greed and trust. But sometimes, when the wind is still, and the moon is full, you can still hear her voice calling from the woods, and those who listen too closely might find themselves hungry again, hungry for more than just food. Thank you for watching. My name is Dedan. Kindly subscribe. If you watched the video till the end, give it a like. Let's meet on the next video.